Hello, and thank you for tuning in to listen to this lecture. Today we're talking about Korean Neo-Confucianism and Seowon Academies as UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Sites. This is my lecture today. I am David A. Mason, a professor of cultural tourism at Sejong University, and this is something about my background for doing this. We begin with the idea of early basic Confucianism, Confucius himself and his main disciples and elaborators in the next few centuries, which is a well-known philosophy of social order, not really a religion at all, but something much more basic and simple than Neo-Confucianism that we are presenting today. Early Korean Confucianism, it is notable that the son of the great Buddhist master Wonhyo-daesa, it was one of the greatest and most beloved of Korean Buddhist monks, had a son with a princess of the Shilla kingdom, and he became Sul-chung, which was the first great Korean Confucianist, credited with Idu writing. You would have to look that up to understand it, but he becomes the first sage established in the Seongyungwan Daeseonjeon, which is Korea's official royal Neo-Confucian shrine honoring the greatest Koreans of Confucian heritage, and he's the very first. Then by the late United Shilla era, the Gukak and Munmyo become institutions of teaching Confucianism for the purpose of government service. We get our second greatest sage of Korean Confucianism, Go-un Chechiwan, at the very end of the United Shilla era and such. In the late 800s, he was the great Confucian scholar and government official who tried to reform and save the kingdom, but failed, became a Taoist and Buddhist enlightened immortal figure in the mountains, but he is then the second person enshrined in the Seoul Munmyo, the shrine for great Confucians. He's the second one, and I wrote this book about him in English. Look up this book if you have the interest. He is respected and even venerated in China, for example. He is so well known across all of East Asia as a great Confucian government official. Now, Goryeo dynasty Confucianism became fully institutionalized but secondary to Buddhism during the long Goryeo dynasty, Korea's medieval period, and we had 4 sages worthy of enshrinement in the Seongyungwan Daeseonjeon. 4 of them qualified there. I will not take the time to name them at this time. It's notable that Korean Confucianism got a lot of influence from both shamanism and Taoism to be more nature-oriented than it was in China. Taoism never being an official religion in Korea, but rather Taoist ideas, practices, artworks, and ideology came into Korea, was incorporated then in the Buddhism and in the Confucianism. And this has continued all through Korean history as a notable characteristic of Korean culture that differentiates from China and Japan. Now, in China, Neo-Confucianism gets started by Zhu Xi, great genius of great genius of Chinese culture who instituted. Okay, Zhu Xi the great genius of Chinese culture in the medieval period, invented Neo-Confucianism. You get the beginning flowering of this new ideology. He created it from previous teachings by other great sages, essentially making a greatest hits package of all previous Chinese culture. Of the 2,000 years that China had developed philosophy and ideology of every kind, Cixi chose the best parts of each one of them and put it together in this unified system called Neo-Confucianism. Now, this doctrine, this ideology was adopted as official empire doctrine. For 800 years, it was official and flourished from the late Song dynasty, the late Yuan dynasty, and all of the Ming and Qing dynasties in China. This was brought to Korea by the great scholar An Hyang from Gyeongsangbuk-do, Yeongju-si, Pungi-myeon, the home of the Pungi-an family of Korea, who is a greatly celebrated clan in Korean history. He traveled to Yuan dynasty China and got the teachings of Neo-Confucianism from disciples of Cixi and brought it back to the late Goryeo dynasty. There at Pungi, started teaching disciples. Also traveled to Gaesong City, the capital of Goryeo, teaching disciples and encouraging the government to reform and reestablish the Confucian education system to become updated with Neo-Confucianism. There are monuments about Neo-Confucianism in Gaesong of the Reform style of the royal tombs and the shrines that they set up that still exist in Gaesong, and these are UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site of North Korea, including this wonderful building which miraculously survived the destructions of the Korean War there in Gaesong, maybe the only wooden building that survived in Gaesong, but it's a wonderful building from the late 1300s, the Sungyungwan Main Hall. Nowadays, the North Koreans call it Goryeo National Museum. This is the Sungyungwan campus now. Inside mural paintings originally from the late 1300s in inside that building and other rebuilt parts of the campus around there. It's a magnificent place to visit, and I did go visit there once when it was open to international tourism. Now we enter Korea's third golden age, which is exactly 1392 to 1592, or we call it the early Joseon dynasty, exactly 200 years. In 1392, the Gyeongbokgung Palace opens up in Hanyang to become the new capital of Seoul, and everything begins flourishing well. And in 1592, it's over as Japanese samurai invade Korea for the Imjin War and destroy very much. But during this period, this third golden age of Korea, there was 200 years of peace and prosperity and good relations between China, Ming Dynasty China, and Joseon Korea. And the key characteristic here is that Neo-Confucianism successfully becomes the official state ideology, replacing Buddhism and displacing Buddhism, virtually making Buddhism illegal, driving it away from all Korean civilization. Korea is the only country that really ever did this in a long-term way, displaced Buddhism and officially, in a revolutionary way, instituted Neo-Confucianism. No other Asian country ever did this. For our UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Sites associated, we begin with the Jongmyo Royal Shrine, immediately established under the new dynasty to enshrine the previous kings as they died one by one, giving them memorial shrine sites along in this building and holding major ceremonies, which are still held today, still reenacted today. About May 1st of every year, you can attend a ceremony like this, and the ceremony itself is a UNESCO intangible World Cultural Heritage intangible treasure, and the shrine itself is a physical cultural heritage site of UNESCO. Now, the Gyeongbokgung Palace Complex, the first main palace established under the Neo-Confucian new government of Hanyang. You can see here, very famous, at the Blue House is far in the back, the Blue House of Korea's president, and the administrative buildings for Korea's presidency along here, but all up in here, the Gyeongbokgung Palace Complex, the main part. This is not yet a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site, but they are reconstructing it to repair the damage that Japanese colonialists did to this palace and try to return it as close as possible to its 1866 original condition, so then it will in the future qualify as a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site. The Seongyungwan, another major important site of Korean Neo-Confucianism. This is the Daesungjun, the great sage's shrine, which I have already mentioned has the 18 greatest Korean Confucian figures in it, 2 from the Shilla period, Seolcheong and Chechiwan, and then 4 from the Goryeo period, and then the other 12 from the Joseon dynasty time, enshrined in here, along with Confucius himself and the 10 greatest Chinese Confucianists who followed Confucius, including Jushi, who invented Neo-Confucianism. They are all enshrined here, a total of 29 figures, and it's great to see the ceremony there that is usually reenacted twice every year. There is also in this Seongyungwan compound the Myeongnyundang, which is on your money. This was built, the architecture inspired by Taege Ihwang, also the builder of Korea's first Neo-Confucian Academy, which we will see soon. This building is in the back behind this great shrine building. It's the main education building, the Hall of Enlightenment, main education building for Neo-Confucianism of this one singular royal university, the only one that existed in the nation during the Joseon dynasty. This whole compound, the Seongyungwan, has been proposed to UNESCO as a World Cultural Heritage Site, but been rejected, unfortunately. And it probably never will qualify because there's simply too much modern development around it, and too much of the compound has been lost to history, cannot be reconstructed, and it just isn't authentic enough for the very strict standards that UNESCO employs. Unfortunate, but this is a site that almost qualifies, let's say. So very worth visiting. The Changdeokgung Palace Complex, very beautiful example of late Korean architecture from the 1700s and 1800s. This has already qualified in 1997 as a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site. It's already on the list, one of Korea's 14, along with the Jongmyo Royal Shrine. As I say, this photo is by Robert Kohler, one of my good friends. And the architecture here, the royal spirit, the Neo-Confucian spirit exemplified by this building structure. and even more so in the back of the palace, the famous Biwan, or secret garden, that has this kind of thing with a library buildings, study buildings around a square pond with a round island in it and a single lone red pine tree flourishing on that island, making a very beautiful scene for the scholarship that took place within the palace compound. And this is part of the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site. Certainly, this is a photo of how it looks in the winter, just to give you some variety. It is a very beautiful area in each of the 4 seasons of Korea. Another UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site of Korea approved in 2009, the 40 royal tombs of the Joseon Dynasty, which exemplify the honor and respect paid in Korean Neo-Confucianism to its royalty, the kings and queens of the dynasty. These are excellent and interesting places to visit, and you can often learn amusing or profound stories of the king who is buried there and what happened during their reign that was important of this very extensive 520-year dynasty, one of the longest royal dynasties ever in world history. Now we get to 2 aristocratic Yangban villages, perfectly well preserved, the 2 of them together becoming one single UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site for Korea, designated in 2010. The Hahue village of Andong City, which is very famous already. Queen Elizabeth II, in her one main visit to South Korea, besides Seoul, visited this village and had very good things to say about it, what she found. This is where nobility lived in Korea, and their retainers and lower level clan members. This is the other one designated. It's in Gyeongju, Korea's ancient capital, which happens to have 4 different UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Sites in this one city, and that is exceptional in the entire world to have 4 of them within one city. Even Seoul doesn't have that. And this village is the only Neo-Confucian site of that in Gyeongju, the ancient capital. The other ones are Buddhist sites from the first golden age of Korea, but this is from the 3rd golden age. Again, the houses of nobility and aristocracy, where you can see the lifestyle of how they lived, these noble families, how they lived and how they cared for the entire area around them, the people who are underneath them, taking care of them and running the local economy there in terms of prosperity and human welfare. You'll notice the one thing that you cannot see in this. Take a look at what you can't see here. You don't see electric wires. There's no electric or telephone wires going across here, ruining the photography, ruining the view. That is really wonderful. The Korean government actually in these villages spent a lot of money to take down all those wires and put them underground, so that UNESCO could find that these are really authentic view. These buildings actually have electricity and telephone service inside of them, and these days internet connections also, but all the wires are running underground, and that is wonderful. Within these buildings, you can go inside, you can even stay overnight or eat a meal inside some of these buildings, and you see the aristocratic lifestyle of these Korean nobility and the wonderful serenity invoked by the simplicity of it. Look how simple and plain, left according to nature, not heavily painted, just going with the wood itself, enjoying the grain of the wood and the beautiful views of the outside nature, the gardens or the landscape. Very important for this. This Yangdong village, as you see here, with lower level houses for retainers down low and the noble houses up above, family shrine buildings within the complex, really exemplifies the lifestyle. We must mention great King Sejong, maybe the best king Korea ever had. Seems to be their attitude. Korea had a dozen really great kings through their history. Maybe he's the best of all, and the perfect ideal of a Neo-Confucian king. What a under Neo-Confucian philosophy, what a king really should be. And he is pictured on the 10,000 won bill for that reason, with the Hangul alphabet proclamation up here that he creating the alphabet, and the sun and moon, 5 mountains painting exemplifying the legitimate authority of Korean kings derived from balance and harmony with nature. And his statues around the country, really the greatest exemplar of Neo-Confucian government in the early 1400s. Koreans really respect this figure, and you must think they really wish they could get leadership like this again, somehow in the modern age. Now, we get to the Seowon, which are Korean Neo-Confucian academies. An academy being like a private high school, what we call today like a private college prep academy in all the more advanced countries of the world that prepare students for high-level universities. There was only one university in the country, and these are for the best students who came as children out of the public education schools that are called YEOL around the country. The very best students to graduate from there had the opportunity as teenage boys, no girls, I'm sorry to say, unfortunately, but teenage boys could attend these academies and do their studies, and the very best students from these academies could take the exam to allow them into the Royal University. Maybe only 200 to 250 such boys every year achieving that high-level entrance to the university. Now, these are the Seowon then. There was originally up to 220 Seowon. Unfortunately, late in the 1800s, the Taewanggun, the father of the King Kojong, had most of these academies destroyed, but some survived and some have been reconstructed with perfect authenticity and retained their importance, and therefore 9 of them became designated as UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Sites in 2019, 9 of them together, and this is wonderful. It's Korea's most recent UNESCO designation, except for a natural site of swamplands down at Suncheon, but that's natural, not cultural. Okay, leading always has been the Dosan Seowon, the one dedicated to Taege Ihwang, the guy on the 1,000 won bill, Korea's most famous Neo-Confucian philosopher. This is the very beautiful, in autumn season, academy that he taught at, and after his death became dedicated with a shrine to him. It is characteristic of Seowon, it is not only an academy to teach Neo-Confucianism to teenage boys, but they have a shrine in the back. Every one of them has a shrine at its back and highest level area. They are usually located at some holy sacred mountain. The shrine there on the highest level in the rear, dedicated to some great Neo-Confucian philosopher of Korea, sometimes even 2 or 3 of them, such those who founded the academy, taught at the academy, or at least whose philosophy inspired that academy to function. Okay. This is the old 1,000 won bill, the former one that was in the 80s and 90s, and it shows Taegye Huang, and on the backside, the Dosan Seowon from the same photo like I just showed you. His main characteristic was to be orthodox to the teachings of Jushi. Inside, beautiful compound of lecture hall, student dormitories, teacher dormitories, and library buildings. They still have ceremonies, memorial rites for Taegye Huang and some of the other great teachers of this doctrine in Korea. They have a whole set, very famously, of academy regulations that the teachers and students must follow. This was highly organized and very formal and approved by the King of Korea. This is where descendants of both Confucius and Mencius, both some of them Koreans and some of them Chinese who came and visited here, but descendants of those families honoring the Dosan Seowon here at a gathering. The Sosu Seowon is the very first Neo-Confucian academy, and it was founded by that same great philosopher, Taegye Huang, on the 1,000 won bill. He started this as the first Seowon and got approval from the King of Korea for his effort to do so, and got the name granted by the king. This was made to honor Mr. An Hyang, who had brought Neo-Confucianism from China to Korea. It is still a major tourist site in Pungi district of Yeongju City, North Gyeongsang province here, and a great tourism place to visit if you have the chance and such. They do have ceremonies, gatherings, and official activities there. This is the actual shrine to An Hyang that is there in the academy. It's kept very authentic, very beautiful, traditional style, again with no electric wires visible to interfere, and just give you really the authentic mood of Korean Neo-Confucianism. They do memorial rites, they do education programs, including in this protected surrounding landscape here is very important. The natural beauty was, again, because of this Taoist influence that I already mentioned in Korean Neo-Confucianism, the appreciation of nature and inspiration from nature's beauty while living in utter simplicity, surrounded by nature's beauty, was a big part of this philosophy and in the education of young men to get a virtuous moral character from that. Okay, here's another Seowon, another of the 9, the Piram Seowon, with a magnificent front gate. This is the general layout in a model of how it's constructed. You can see the shrine for the great philosopher founder in the back, and this is an example of the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Monument there that officially proclaims such places all over Korea today. This is the arrangement inside. Again, it is beautiful, unspoiled, and authentic. Now, the Donam Seowon in Nonsan, another handsome, good-looking such academy place. Namgae Seowon and Hamyang-gun. This is just part of South Gyeongsang province, just north of the great Jirisan mountain. Another great one to visit. They have treasures in there like these wood blocks for printing Neo-Confucian scriptures or important documents, such as these in there. And they have still management meetings, still a living culture. There is not much in English about any Neo-Confucian education for foreigners. Yet, for international visitors to Korea, I wish there was, and this is something we're still trying to kind of work on conceptually within Korean tourism to develop a Neo-Confucian Seowon stay programs with education in English. This is an example of the beautiful setting near the Andong Hahui village, the Andong Byongsan Seowon. the beautiful setting nearby the river in this case. This Seowon is famous for its gigantic porch, the longest such pavilion in all of Korea, used as an educational lecture space as well as just informal meetings with the beautiful view. It is the longest and greatest of Korean traditional pavilions. The Musong Seowon is dedicated to Go-un Chechiwan, the one I mentioned from Unified Shilla, who's the second Korean sage enshrined. This whole Seowon is dedicated to him and is a wonderful place to visit. This is his official portrait at the official shrine within that Seowon. The Dodang Seowon is in Daegu City and is also designated as part of these 9. The UNESCO emphasized the interaction of interior spaces with exterior spaces through these pavilions, the views, the ability to greet and talk to other people in other stages of entering or leaving such designated spaces within these sacred institutions. Now, the Oksan Seowon is in Gyeongju, another one of Gyeongju's 4 UNESCO-designated World Cultural Heritage Sites, and another Neo-Confucian one, along with the Yangdong village. I said before that was the only one. I was mistaken. This is the other one, and the other 2 of them are Buddhist sites. Just to correct myself, this is a wonderful place to visit, very scenic, very natural, the Jade Mountain Seowon. Students who studied here must have been very lucky and fortunate indeed to enjoy this culture in such a wonderful city as Gyeongju, and to have such beautiful natural surroundings around it, like this open kind of porch of rocks right outside the academy where students could take their leisure next to a wonderful pretty stream of perfectly clean water, and there's some small waterfalls and ponds for swimming in. The Ojikun, we must mention, up for future designation, possibly as a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site. Yulguk Ii, the official on the 5,000 won bill, a kind of yin-yang philosophical rival as Taegye I Hwang. And they lived at the same time during the 2nd century of Korea's 3rd Golden Age, and this is his birthplace. And the main shrine nationally designated to him, and also his mother is very much celebrated. His mother, the woman who gave birth to him here, and herself became a great poet, calligrapher, and artist. All the artwork on her bills and his bill is done by her. She's one of the greatest female artists of all Korean history, maybe the very greatest, and known as one of the 5 great painters. We will mention Uam Songshi-yeol, a great Neo-Confucian of the 1600s who led a very strict regime and interpretation, and this is his very beautiful retreat in the the Sognisan National Park in Chungcheongbuk-do, North Chungcheong, such a very beautiful site called the Hwayang Valley. Such. We will mention Shilhak, practical learning, a new movement in the 1700s, 1800s of Korean Neo-Confucianism to make it more about science, less about abstract philosophy, more about science and good government and everything from biology to astronomy to make better life for the common people. And it was intellectuals who were exiled in the Southwest became leaders of this, using their free time very productively. The greatest genius, a kind of Leonardo da Vinci of Korea, Dasan Chonyak-yong, in the right around flourishing right around 1800, a great genius who wrote more than 100 books of this Neo-Confucianism shilhak, practical learning on every possible topic, and he is responsible for this UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site, the Suang Hwasong Fortress. He was the chief architect who put together this very beautiful compound as a military fortress and also center of a new palace and a prospective new capital for Korea that was not quite realized, but is perfectly well preserved today as a wonderful place to visit. Now, just wrapping up, we note that Korea fell out of Neo-Confucianism into its fourth dark age as Neo-Confucianism kind of collapsed. It had no more really good, proper answers for society, foreign ideas flowing into Korea, and a breakdown of the kingdom, leading to Korea becoming a Japanese colony. Then the horrors of World War II, national division and chaos, and then the horrors of the Korean War, and then dictatorships during rapid industrialization that make Korea's fourth dark age. During that, I already mentioned the Daewon-gun destroyed most of the Seowon, unfortunately, in 1872, but those do remain. And we get to problems and failures, but we're not going to go into that, lacking time. Let's just say Neo-Confucianism had its problems. It had its really good points, very strong points, the reason why it dominated all of East Asia for 600 years, but it also had some serious failings, which I will just flip through and get to the end. I would say visit my website here for more information about all this in Korea, for the holy sacred mountains of Korea and the great sites at those mountains, including Neo-Confucianism, also Buddhism, shamanism, Taoism, and other great Korean spiritual traditions. Check this website and get in touch with me from there with any questions that you have. I would be happy to answer. I would like to thank the YEOL organization for hosting me for this lecture. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate what YEOL does for the globalization of Korean culture in international languages. Thank you all for listening, and good day.